everybody and welcome. My name is Brooke and you are at the Pink Frog. Today we're going to do a sew along, and the sew along that we're going to be doing with today is the Simplicity 8873. It's this one. This is the Gertie pattern. Now I'm not making the whole dress today. Today we're just working on the skirt. We're just making a quick and easy skirt, and I will show you guys everything that you need to make this pattern. I'll be right back. So for this project, to make this skirt, you need the Simplicity 8873 pattern. You need a tape measure, you need a zipper, you need a pair of scissors, and you need about 4 yards of fabric. And we are good to go. And this is pattern piece 10. It's also the back side of the skirt, and it's the side B. And you're going to cut 2 of these out of your fabric, and that will be the back of your skirt. So this is piece 9, and it is also pattern piece B. This is the front part of the skirt, and it's going to be cut on the fold, and you only need to cut 1 on the fold. So these are my 2 back panels, and this is a snowflake pattern that I got a long time ago. I had it at home and it was sent to me, but I didn't have a chance to do it at Christmas time. This fabric is from the frozen fabric that they had at Hobby Lobby that I got right before I came down here last year. This huge long piece right here, which is very big and long, is the pattern piece that I have, and that's going to be the front part of the skirt. So this is my interfacing, and this is my waistband. This is the interfacing for the waistband. This is 4.5 inches wide, as is that. This is not fusible web or anything. It's just interfacing that I had hanging around. You don't have to make this wide if you don't want to. You can make it as wide as you want. I just like my waistbands wider. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to sew the really long piece to the 2 short ends. So this will be the back side, and we're attaching to that big long piece. And so now I'm just going to sew these 2 pieces together. Start front, then I go back stitch to seal and lock the stitches in place. So right now all I'm doing is I am going over the edge of the seam with a zigzag stitch to make sure that I have a nice clean seam. Now I'm just going to do it with the other side of the seam. Start off, back up to lock the seam in the stitch, and then just continue on. So now all I'm doing is I'm taking the second panel and I'm attaching it to the front. So I'll have 2 panels in the back and 1 in the front. Start off with a stitch, back stitch to lock those stitches in place. And there you go. So now what I'm doing again is on the seam, I'm going to do the overcast stitch with it, which is the zigzag stitch to both sides of the seam. Start out with the stitch, back stitch to lock it in place always, and march forward. So now all I'm going to do is iron my seams flat. Give them a good press with the iron, and I'll go back over now and whoop-a-doo, and I will get rid of all my extra threads that are hanging on and trim those, and I'll do that on both sides. And just give this a nice press. So this is going to be your huge long stretch of fabric. It's like a big gigantic red carpet, except it's not red. Anyway, and what you're going to end up doing is doing a gathering stitch across the top around, I don't know, 1/4 of an inch from the edge. So what you're going to end up doing is running 2 gathering stitches 1/4 away from each other across the top of each panel. So you're going to start off at this end and you're going to do a running stitch to the end of this panel, and then you're going to stop, and then you'll start and you leave a really long tail at the end of that, and I'll show you that in more detail. And then across the middle one, you're going to do a running stitch, 2 running stitches, 1/4 of an inch, and then at the end on the last panel, you're going to end up doing 2 gathering stitches on that. And I'll show you how that looks. And the reason why you do this is because you can over stress the thread, and I've done this 1,000 times, and something this long, when you have to shear everything together to make it small and tight, you want to make sure that there's not a lot of stress on those threads, so because they'll break right in the middle of you're shearing everything together, the threads will break. You also want to make sure that you leave long stitches at the end, and I'll show you what I mean by that. So for your gathering stitch, you're going to want to take your thread, and you're going to want to put your thread tension down to 0, and you're going to want to pull a very long tail on this, like that, because those are the threads you're going to be pulling to make sure your fabric's sheared. And you're going to want to use the longest stitch on your dial for the stitching length. And like I said, you want to make sure that you've got it on 0, and then you are all set to go. This takes a long time and a lot of patience, and I'm trying to enjoy the process. So this is a process I do not enjoy, but I'm going to learn to enjoy it. So here we go. I'm doing this 1/4 of an inch away from the edge. You don't want to do a back stitch because you want this nice and loose. So I'm doing the first panel right now. So now I'm at the very edge of my first panel, and I'm about ready to stop. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pull this away. I'm going to pull a really super long tail with my thread. I'm just going to pinch that right here and pull a really long tail with the thread. And the reason why you do that is so that when you cinch the fabric, you don't lose your scissors. So when you cinch the fabric, you have a long tail to play with. So I'm going to cut that right there. And then I have a nasty habit of cutting my threads too short, and then when I go to sew, oh, it's such a pain. Okay, so there we have it, and I'm going to show you what that looks like as then I have to do it one more time. So now I have to do this one more time because you want 2 stitches of gathering on this. So I'm just going 1/4 of an inch away from where I had my first threads, and I've already pulled my tail. Where's my tail? There's my tail. It's really super long for this one. And I'm just going to go 1/4 away from the last gathering stitches I did. So all I'm doing is my little pressure foot is following the line of stitches that I've already done along here, so that I can gather this really nicely. And this is just the first panel. Okay, here I am again at the end of my first back panel. I'm going to lift the pressure foot up, and I'm going to pull a really long tail. Oh, that was weird. I don't know what that was. Did you guys hear that weird sound? Oh, I'm out of thread. So there you see 2 rows of stitches. There's a row of stitches there, and there's a row of stitches there. You can see that. And those are going to be my gathering stitches on my first panel, and I have a long tail on each one. And now I'm just going to do that to the big middle piece and then to the other end piece. So now I'm starting on the longest panel. This is the middle panel that I'm starting on. I pulled my tail. Now all I'm doing is going down. So here I'm at the edge. Now I don't want to go into my seam allowance. That's a mistake that you don't want to make. You don't ever want to go into your seam allowance here. So you bend your seam allowance away from where the needle is, and you just take it to the end. I'm just going to do that by hand. Always turn your dial towards you, never away, even when it seems stuck. And you pull a really long tail. Doo-doo-doo-doo. Okay, so there's my tail. Now I've got to go back and do this a second time because you need 2 rows of stitches. So I get to do this huge long piece all over again. Whee! So I'm on the wrong side of the fabric and I've got my two threads together. Those are the threads that you want to pull to cinch the actual waist. So you're going to take it and cinch and pull your stitches so that everything kind of cinches together. See how that's coming together? And you're holding this with your right hand and you're cinching it with your left hand. And it starts to come together, and you want this to come together to your waist measurements. So now I've got everything cinched. Everything is all set, cinched, and ready to go. Now what I'm going to do is the waistband. That's going to be the next step. I'm going to do the waistband and then put in the zipper, but for right now we're just going to do the waistband. So what I've done now is I've got the waistband and I've got the interfacing pinned to the waistband, and I'm going to go sew this onto the waistband so that I can attach it to the skirt. Okay, so what I'm doing right now is I'm attaching the top of the waistband to the actual skirt. Just going to give a back stitch and go along very slowly, because this is where you can make a lot of mistakes because there is so much ruching under here. Not ruching, but see. You just want to be really careful, go real slow, because you do not want to catch the skirt underneath in the folds as you go along. So this is something that you can take your time with. And go slowly. So now I've got the waistband attached and I'm putting in my zipper. So I've folded over my waistband over the zipper so that this part right here is bent and you can't see it. Like that. And I'm going to put the zipper in, and I am going to then hand stitch the back of the waist binding and the waistband down by hand. That's what it looks like raw inside. And that's the interfacing that's in there. And I'm going to put that down as soon as I get the zipper in. I'm putting the zipper in first because it's easier for me, but you can do it any way you like. So here we go. So now I have my zipper pinned in to my skirt, and I'm going to do this by hand simply because of the fact that I don't think a sewing machine, at least my sewing machine, doesn't do a great job at putting in zippers. So I do this by hand, and this little part right up here at the top will be bent over to be caught up in the waistband. So this is the waistband from the back, and I haven't sewn that down yet because I've got to wait to put my zipper in. So it'll look really nice and neat, and there we go. So now, because my seam edge is raw, I have to go back over this, and I am going to do a zigzag stitch over the top so it will not be a raw seam inside and I won't get little tiny pieces of thread sticking out everywhere. So that's my next step. I've got the one side of the zipper already done, and I just got to make sure that I do the inside nicely. So that's next. So my seam is all done. So you can see it, and I went over it and I just did the zigzag stitch over the top of that. So now I've got to put in the other side of the zipper.
Bridgerton house currently appears to be emptier than the muddled head of her dearest King George.
So right now I have just done my hem, just part of the hem. I just turned a little bit up from the bottom, and now I'm going to flip it over one more time, and I'm going to finish my hem off, and then the skirt will be ready. It'll be beautiful. Yay!
Sister, there were never such devoted sisters.
Okay, so that's the skirt. I think it came out really well. It's really cute and adorable with the frozen fabric from Hobby Lobby. The other thing is that on the pattern you can make pockets. I opted out for making pockets on this. I've made pockets for the other skirts that I made, and they came out well. So if you want to put in pockets, you can do that. This skirt doesn't have the pockets though, but it still came out just as well. I just love it. So before I got the fabric, I shipped to me from home. I ended up going on Etsy, and for a present from my mom, I got this absolutely gorgeous sweater. It is just so beautiful. Absolutely gorgeous. The detail, the bows, everything. It reminded me so much of White Christmas. I thought this would be perfect for winter. And I was so grateful to my mom. It's one of my most favorite sweaters. I love all my sweaters, but this one is just absolutely gorgeous. But it's just so classic and smart looking and beautiful. And it goes really well with the skirt, I think. So if you have any questions at all, please leave messages in the comments below, because I will do the best I can to help you. I am definitely not an expert sewist at all, but I will do the best that I can to help you through this. If you like this type of video, give it a big thumbs up. I will do more sew-alongs. I just got some more patterns that were shipped from home, so I'm really excited about that. I hope you guys are having a beautiful day. I hope you enjoyed this video. I want to say thank you again for everybody that supported me and said welcome back. Thank you, thank you. You guys are just so sweet and wonderful. And you guys have a beautiful day, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye.